Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're located. And welcome to our webinar on ransomware protection with focus on really instant recovery in any cloud. With me today, I have two gentlemen representing our friends and partners, Michael Diemer, system engineer from Veeam, and Elton Carniero, director of partnership from Backblaze. And my name is Martin Mulomsky, and I'm a director of product at phoenixNAP. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today and helping on this journey to finding better educational paths to instant recovery and dealing with the plague that is ransomware today.
Of course, thanks for having us.
Yeah, Martin, thank you very much for having us. Hoping everyone's excited to be joining us and learning about how you can protect yourself from ransomware.
That's why we're here. All right, guys, as the title suggests, what we're going to do today is talk about several things. And we'll start with reminding everyone briefly and highlighting some of the continuous and increasing threat that is ransomware. Then Michael will cover how Veeam really provides very simple and extremely effective ways to really protect your data. And Elton will share with us how Backblaze enables people really an easy path to recovery of your environments while actually providing amazing operational agility. So with that said, as you guys know, right, ransomware has been on the news lately a lot. From everybody's talking about this, from politicians, right, to anyone and everyone really. And ransomware is escalating at a record pace. And there are multiple reasons for that, but some of them more important ones are because there is really the risk versus reward for doing these type of attacks is completely skewed, and really bad actors are fairly comfortable in going about their business unhindered, right? A lot of them are located in countries where they basically are completely safe and unreachable. And as you guys might have seen on the news, what's been happening, like even this year, any size of an organization, right, and any business, any kind of vertical can be a target. It is a target because unless somebody has very specific reason to do this kind of behavior or wanting to hinder your business, the rest is just profit driven, really, right? And some of the most memorable, or memorable might not be a great word to use, but some of the most famous incidents, right, that happened just very recently, where I'm sure everybody heard about the Colonial Pipeline Company, which is a U.S. oil, which paid $4.4 million in ransoms. Half of it, or maybe a little over half of it, was recovered with the help of the government agency. But that really, that happens almost once in never. Some other examples, JBS, which one of the largest beef suppliers in the world, they paid 11 million in ransom, right, to get the keys back to their data. And probably one of the biggest ransoms paid recently, CNA Financials, right? 7th largest insurance company in the US, and these guys actually paid $40 million to get their data back, so to speak. So that really highlights, how real the threat is and what kind of profit margins are there for the bad actors, really, right? And all they have to do is make sure to lock up your data and extort the money. So, and COVID actually is making this situation a lot more difficult and worse, because what we see is exponential growth in home workers, which, these guys and girls and ladies and gentlemen use digital assets, right, to perform their daily tasks. And while doing this remotely, they open a whole kind of worms and problems that really are open to a lot more of security gaps and so increasing chances that bad actors can find their way into your network as a business. On top of that, we're looking at increased and additional sprawl of edge devices, IoT devices, even like people working from home, right, have these things sitting on their network that are basically extending the entire perimeter of security that your company has to deal with, which more often than not goes completely unnoticed. Yeah, so as you guys see, popularity of these attacks is just getting larger, and as some of this data on the slide shows, right, 714 million ransomware attacks expected to occur by end of this year, and I expect that this is just a number that is potentially twice as large, really, because we're talking here about stuff that's been reported or somebody gathered the information, right? But how many attacks happen in the quiet back rooms where, right, companies pay the ransom fees and never tell anyone? And to that point, IDC research also actually shows us that about 43% of organizations have experienced unrecoverable data loss in the past 12 months, right? Not necessarily all of it being related to ransomware attacks, and on top of that, about 63% of the organizations that were exposed to the research, right, had some kind of a data-related disruption. Again, various reasons. And in the next slide, we'll show you the top 5 reasons what really is causing this data loss. As you can see, backup gaps being as a number 1, with malware, right, and ransomware trailing like almost immediately behind it. So fairly high level of causing problems. And then backup and recovery system failures as a third one, with human error and lost or damaged tapes far behind the line. So really the top 3 out of the top 5 are the things that we actually can help you guys protect against. And this webinar is part of that strategy and part of that educational path, right? So let's move on to the next slide, and in which we're just going to briefly highlight, right, the importance of really having a plan, because in order to be in a position to even do a DR, you need to have a plan, right, and data to recover from. So just jumping really quickly through those hoops is, first of all, you obviously want to start to identify what is critical to your business operations, right, and which data is critical to those operations, and then making sure that you can protect yourself against very basic and common mistakes and reasons for data loss. And then after that, right, you're looking at defining really your recovery parameters, your RPOs and RTOs, and going from there, you're gonna have to have an actual recovery plan, right, and instruction steps, the whole playbook of going from the moment of a disaster, right, procedures, etc., till you are at a point of a complete recovery. And ultimately, once you really have all of that put together, you'll need to make sure that you test your plan in a safe environment, and why you actually not experiencing any outages, right? You test the disaster recovery plan before the disaster hits to make sure that you did not create any gaps that you might not be aware of in your DR game plan, to be honest, right? And guys, before we move on, I just wanted to run a really quick poll with a couple of questions. The question number 1 is going to be, how much data are you really responsible for protecting today? And obviously this can change, right, pretty quickly depending on your business and the level of growth of your company. And right after that, we're gonna have another poll, which will have some interesting questions, and especially because we are super curious where you are at in your protection plan. So let's close this one and jump to the second poll. As you guys can see, less than 100 TB is a common thing among our attendees. Yeah, the rest is 100 to a half a petabyte, 100 TB to a half a petabyte. All right, thank you so much. And a question number 2. Yep, and this one is also super interesting for us, and I hope nobody is gonna answer the last answer, and that almost everybody is at a 0.4, or hopefully is trying to get to point number 4. So we'll see in a minute what the answers do look like actually. Let's give it another second. So all of the above, look at that, almost 90%, with 11% backup and DR, and what we were hoping to see, the last one at 0. Excellent, very cool. Thank you guys for taking the time to vote. And moving on. So as we want to start talking about the solutions that help with data protection, you will see that before you can actually go on the path of recovery, right? You have to make sure you have a clean and intact data. And with that said, we'll cover 2 important terms here. One is leveraging immutability and object lock, and the other one is insider protection. And with this, I will actually pass the word to Michael, which will do a little bit more of a deep dive on these subjects and how Veeam actually uses these concepts to help you protect your data.
Perfect.
Go on, Michael.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you. And good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Deemer, systems engineer here for Veeam Software. And I do want to bring up a couple things that Martin was absolutely driving into that I think are very valuable as a takeaway, right? Is some of these things are like retention gaps and ransomware that are just not going to be going away because it's a fad, right? I mean, I've been in the IT industry for many, many years. Don't want to say how many, it's been a little too long. But it's not going to go away anytime soon. And there's a couple things that we can do to really start to eliminate and start to put up some different barriers and boundaries. And that's where the 3-2-1 rule really comes into play. Now, Veeam also has a 3-2-1-1-0 rule, but I would hope most of you have either heard of 3-2-1. And one of the biggest things that I always love to say is, if your MSP or your backup vendor or even your object storage vendor isn't bringing this up as a rule of thumb, start to look around, because that's one of the biggest things that I've been on the other side of these webinars, and I've heard, hey, don't worry about it, just let ransomware insurance pay for it. Well, that's not right. One, because ransomware insurance isn't going to pay for it if it's not set up and configured properly, because they have certain limitations and accountability that they have to provide to their insurances. So with that being said, I would hope most of us have heard the 3-2-1 rule, and I'll kind of go into both. So the biggest one is the 3-2-1 rule, which is 3 different copies of your data. In this particular case, it's going to be VBKs. Now, VBKs in the Veeam world are active pools of your data, right? So we have 3 different copies of that data. Now, the second portion of this, or the number 2, is 2 different types of media, having some type of tape drive and maybe an SSD, NVMe drive, something that are just not, that are 2 different types of media sets just directly, 2 different types of arrays. Now, this is where we can start to get into Backblaze, and we can start to get into phoenixNAP, and we can start to move these off to an off-site location, whether that be a data center, a cloud, or a tape repository. Really, regardless, just having something off-site. And this is where CYA really comes into play, is having something that we know that's off-site, and we're making sure that that's where the 1 comes into play, or the extra 1 is offline. So offline, air gap, something that can't be touched, nothing that can be overwritten. Now, once we pair 3-2-1-1, and then we put the 0 rule in there, and the 0 rule is also one of the most important rules, is actually having backup and recovery verification done. Now, backup and recovery verification actually is called sure backup, and sure backup underneath the skin is testing your backups, making sure if it was 3 years, 6 years, or 3 days ago, we can make sure that we can go back and restore that data with no errors. We're making sure we're doing heartbeat tests, ping tests, and application tests, and we're making sure that everything is going to be good to go, going forward. Now, here on my next slide, we're going to be talking more about the focus of modern data protection. And it might be obvious to say, and I think it is data is the number one asset after people, right? People are absolutely the first asset for any business, regardless small or big. Without people, we don't have data, and we can't really do anything without that. But protecting it is really the first step in effectively managing it. If we can't really effectively back it up and manage it, we really are at a disadvantage. Now, this is where, well-managed and protected data provides the foundation to drive innovation faster and to deliver improved customer and employee experiences, right? Because if we can't, at the end of the day, make sure that your engineers or maybe your DevOps guys or anybody inside the organization is making sure they're having these good experiences. Hey, I lost an email, whatever that may be. We need to be able to have that digital transformation already kind of underway or already done, so that way we can make everybody's experience faster, more productivity, so on and so forth. Now, with modern business, right? This is really what it is. It's a modern business requires modern data protection. It's really simple. Now, what does this really do? This not only allows for backups and recovery core infrastructure, like your infrastructure and all your applications, but also enables the lowest operational overhead through automation and seamless scalability, right? Now, and it doesn't really matter the size of the volume. It could be any volume, any size of the volume, and any type of workload. Now, kind of moving from left to right here, we have protect, manage, and unleash. Now, under the protect side, we're going to be able to deliver a digital resiliency with data protection, with reduced overhead, cost of legacy data protection, right? So these old legacy systems are actually kind of being a little bit of a pain in the neck and costing us a little bit of money. Now, what we're trying to do is make them more reliable and security resistant against malware threats. And really, that's the biggest thing, right? We're really trying to protect that particular data. This is where like threat protection comes in, automated data retention, really making sure that Veeam can handle that particular side. Now, moving into the middle, that's like DR orchestration, data recovery and compliance, and monitoring and remediation. But what does this really do? Well, what we're trying to do is ensure digital trust with intelligent data management that increases the availability through automated policy-driven based services that also includes instant recovery. And that is really key here, is making sure that if something does happen, backs up against the wall, I need to be able to move, right? And move fast and move quickly and move efficiently is honestly the name of the game when things are happening. Because honestly, I've been there. I was an MSP admin for many, many years prior to coming to Veeam. And I can tell you, having some type of plan, orchestrating what it would look like to be done is huge, because when you have a team, whether it's small or large, and something like that happens, ransomware, malware, insider stuff, or even supply chain attacks, everybody's running around like their head's cut off. And this is kind of how it is. Unless you've done it over and over again, you know what the strategic play is. Everybody has a role. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is making sure that we understand that. Now, at the end here, what we're going to do is unleash your data, right? And how we're going to do that is data portability, cloud mobility. So whether we're going from phoenixNAP to Backblaze or vice versa, wherever we're landing that particular data, we're doing it very fast, efficient, and we're doing it with advanced data analysis and security analysis as well, making sure that everything from end to end is protected. Now, here on my next slide, I'm going to be kind of going over a couple different things, and this is going to be more around the Veeam backup and recovery side. Now, we have a ton of different things that we can protect. So anything on the left-hand side, we're talking Azure, AWS, Google, all the way down to Linux, Unix, AHV, Hyper-V, even some SaaS products, right? We have Office 365, we have Kubernetes containers, NAS, and it also depends kind of at the end here, how fast or how often we want to back up. We can do continuous data protection, or CDP. We also do ransomware and security protection as well. Now, I'm not going to read the whole slide. I think that's just kind of redundant. But really, Veeam has a unique approach to backup and recovery, just in general. What we do is we try to assist these organizations for all sizes and modern data protection. What we're doing is providing an intuitive backup solution that just works. It's full software-defined and with application awareness to ensure granular and verified recovery of all critical assets, whether they're big or whether they're small. And, that is one of the things that I feel like almost everybody needs. You need a solution that just works in these environments that you invested in. And this is the other thing, is we're agnostic. Whether you're building a Linux environment now and you want to switch to Azure, AWS, you want to get more of that physical presence and you want to ditch that and maybe you're going more cloud-based, we can still make that happen. And I think that's one of the key components here. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is a hardened Linux repository. Now, a lot of you guys, I would have hoped have heard maybe before this, maybe not, but what is a hardened Linux repository? I'm just going to keep it pretty simple, pretty basic on this particular slide, but at the end of the day, what this is a repository on-prem that is completely ransomware, malware resistant. Now, what does that really mean? Well, it has, if you're used to like the Iron Mountain type of a feel, right? Well, without sending your tape off to Iron Mountain, having to go inside their array and sit there for many months, years, or that time frame, we have now a mutable repository that we can set on-prem. So instead of landing on like a NAS or maybe a file server, you have this Linux hardened repository that's a malware resistant repository. And what it's going to really do is prevent against malicious encryption and deletion. Now, going a little more into depth about this hardened Linux repository here on my next slide, what I really want to drive home is how it actually works underneath the skin. Now, immutable flags, that's something that I think is absolutely mission critical for talking about hardened Linux repositories just in general. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making this malware safe repository on-prem. And what we're going to do, if it's set up properly, and I think that's the key, we can actually use insider protection along with this. Now, I think that key phrase, if set up properly, and I think Martin really drove this home a little bit earlier, is those retention gaps, those gaps of confusion between certain things, right? That is absolutely huge for the overall schema. I can tell you that I've been in plenty different environments where things were all there, the arrays were there, they spent a lot of money, but the underlying IT staff didn't understand some of the technology, and that goes for vice versa. Even the smaller companies, they might not have all the bells and whistles, but if you set them up properly, you have the right protocols, it goes a long way. Now, going back to the hardened Linux repository here, what is it going to do? It's going to deny any deletions of the backup. So let's just say I'm the malware, and I want to come in, I was able to get into the system, and I want to now delete that particular array. Well, since it has a mutable flag, it's going to tell me to kick rocks and pound sand, and I'm not going to be able to do anything unless I have physical access to that box. And then that's kind of how it works. As long as you don't have physical access, and of course there's different ways to kind of get over that, you're going to be in an A-OK position. Now, going into a little more here on my next slide about Linux immutable repositories is I want to talk about some of the things that we use underneath the skin, right? So we're going to use this non-root account. We're going to use these single-use credentials for this hardened repository. Now, if you actually drag your attention here to that little second box, is going to say, make this backup immutable for X amount of days. So that's how you set your immutable flag. It's not, you could do it via CLI, but it's all very easy and user-friendly to set up these particular flags. And remember, the biggest thing that we're going to be using on the back end, at least underneath the skin, is XFS to leverage the block cloning. Block cloning, saving storage on the array, and really making sure that we're using it to the best ability. Now, the next thing I really want to talk about is the archive tier, or what I like to call sober. So this is sober, and so this is scale out backup repositories. And let me just kind of break this down for you. You have your performance tier, your capacity tier, and archive tier, okay? So your performance tier is your local spinning disk target that you need to land on first. Think of this as your landing zone. Capacity tier, in this particular case, it says Amazon, but it could be phoenixNAP, could be Backplate. Really very interchangeable there. Really doesn't matter which aggregate you go with. So they're both going to be able to fit in the capacity tier. Now, what I really want to touch on is archive tier. Archive tier is a newer tier, and it's a cold tier for grandfather, father, son. So if you want, your active full sitting in deep Amazon Glacier, or blob archive storage, this is absolutely something that you can do and something that you can leverage and really use versatility between the two. So it's really, really good. It's policy-based, it's cost-optimized, and it's really self-sufficient. And that's one of the biggest things here. Now, I know I'm coming here to the end of my slides here on the Veeam side, and I do want to introduce Elton. He's one of the Veeam strategic partners for ransomware and data protection, and I like to call him the rock star in all things repository related. So I would like to welcome Elton.
Thanks, Michael. That's awesome. I love it. I am the rock star.
Of course.
Well, thank you, Michael, Martin. Thanks. You guys did a great job at painting the story on ransomware protection at all different levels of your whole backup story. Martin highlighted the stories, a bunch of stories at the top here, and I wanted to kind of hone into one specifically that we've seen in the news. The Colonial Pipeline, that major ransomware attack on the gas pipeline, it took out all their services for 6 days, right? And they ended up paying a ransom of about $5 million. But the thing was that they still had to rely on their backups since the decryption process was way too slow. Had they not had clean working backups, the amount of time that they would have basically been inoperational for is completely unknown. Moreover, ransomware sometimes it did not provide a decryption tool. So you can pay them all the money they want, but they may not have a proper decryption tool, or it may take forever to decrypt the data. So having backups is essential. Protecting those backups with object lock ensures that the business data is readily available in case you ever need it. So what is object lock? So object lock is a feature available in Backblaze B2 Cloud Storage at no additional cost, and it allows you to really protect your data from any form of modification or deletes, whether it's human, software, malicious, or unintentional, right? And kind of going back to slide 3 with Martin covered, where we saw the 5 key reasons for unrecoverable data. With Backblaze and object lock, we can totally help with the last two, the human error and the lost damage tapes, right? When you have object lock, even a human, by mistake cannot delete that data, or you don't have to worry about tapes because it's all stored for you in the cloud. Looking at immutability Veeam, right? So Backblaze and Veeam make it really easy to basically protect your data by you can make your data immutable by enabling object lock on your Backblaze B2 bucket and by setting the immutability in Veeam. Once you've done so, the data cannot be modified or deleted by anyone. So with 2 clicks, you basically have ransomware protection. So why is this necessary? Right? In today's world where ransomware is targeting even backup systems, for example, a group of cyber criminals, Conti, is targeting Veeam backup specifically, and the answer from Veeam's Director of Product Strategy, immutable backup copies on premises, in the cloud, a storage system, or unique service provider offerings, or even a combination of these. The next piece of our instant recovery solution is cloud storage, where we all understand, and we'll talk about it more. So now that you've thought about backup and you have a backup plan in place, you need to think about recovery. So again, this goes back to what Michael spoke about, the 3-2-1-1-0. Being able to recover and having no errors in your recovery plan is really crucial in that plan. So a true disaster recovery plan is kind of broken down into 3 components. You need to make sure you're backing up your infrastructure, and in addition, you need to have access to those backups at any time. So choosing a storage platform that's available to you in the event of a disaster or an attack is really important. And the last piece of this puzzle is having infrastructure that you can use to restore your data to. So looking at the options that are available today for for disaster recovery, right? There's traditional option, which is you keep a replica of your site on standby. So you basically you clone your entire production environment to a location, close by or a different location, in a different city, a state, etc., whereby you're replicating everything that you have in your production in that location, right? The problem here is that this process takes up incredible amounts of time from whoever's doing the job, and it's also costly because you have a whole bunch of man hours as well as the infrastructure that's required to get you back up and running in the event of a disaster. With cloud solutions, you can safely store all the necessary apps and data required to run your business in a secured cloud environment. This environment will offer you access no matter where you are geographically located, as well as minimize downtime, right? If you have network issues, it doesn't affect you because it's all in the cloud, it's always available to you, right? However, as you grow, this solution can get really expensive. The other option, the other solution is DR as a service. DR as a service, can save organizations a whole bunch of money by eliminating the need for provisioning and maintaining the organization's kind of own offsite disaster recovery environment. However, organizations should evaluate and understand the services and what the service level agreements are. Many businesses with lean IT teams can simply afford the time it takes to research, implement, and test a fully disaster recovery plan, right? So DR as a service takes the burden out of this, right? Because the organizations that offer this basically are taking control and providing the expertise and the intellect required to bring your environment back up and running should a disaster happen. So jumping into the last one, which is instant recovery in any cloud, right? We launched the instant recovery in any cloud a couple of months ago. And what this really is, it's a prepared disaster recovery plan that is only used if there's a disaster, right? So thinking about the pieces of your disaster recovery solution, you can look at them as an equation, right? So you have your backup software, you have your data storage, and you have your infrastructure. So overlaying our partners, you have Veeam, who does a really great job at basically backing up your virtual environment, putting stuff into the cloud. You have Backbase V2 as your cloud storage, which offers you that offsite, the third copy of your data in the cloud, which is protected by us using object lock and all the features and services that we offer to make sure your data is protected. And you have phoenixNAP that is offering you that infrastructure, the bare metal cloud infrastructure that allows you to quickly provision and restore your data so that you're back up and running. So going down to looking at what this looks like from an image perspective, kind of overlaying what Michael spoke about when you're looking at your on-prem infrastructure, your performance tier, your capacity tier. This is kind of the same thing, right? You have your on-prem servers, which is backed up by Veeam. So you may have your SQL, your mail server, your web application servers, your file servers, all being protected and backed up by Veeam to Backbase B2. Should a disaster happen, all you do is run a single Ansible script, which goes and provisions all the resources required to allow you to restore that data that you're protected using Veeam back in the cloud in a completely different network, and you're basically allowed to get up and running really quickly. So the whole solution, it's a single click. Basically, you run a single command and you're back up and running. There's no need to pay for a year-round protection. All the configuration data is ready to go. And the idea is that you can bounce back from a catastrophic event and get back to work with minimal downtime. And at this point, I want to pass it off back to Martin, who's going to talk to us about the phoenixNAP bare metal cloud.
Thank you so much, Elton, and thank you, Michael. And guys, as Elton just highlighted, right, our phoenixNAP bare metal cloud perfectly fits this scenario, right, for instant recovery as being a target, right, for your data and infrastructure. I mean, through simple automation, right, usage of Ansible playbooks, you will be able to basically almost instantaneously stand up environment, right? It takes minutes, literally, and start working on basically on your recovery of your entire environment, right? From Backbase repository, right? Ultimately, it's all on demand, pay as you go. So as Michael and Elton already were talking about, right? You have full flexibility, guarantee of access to resources, and none of the financial, right, entanglement or long-term contracts or things like that, which most of you know what full DR solution could look like, right, from financial perspective. So you're basically looking OpEx, access to infrastructure whenever you need it, deployment within minutes, and then rebuilding everything you need to rebuild, as long as you made sure in the first instance, right, that data exists and you've been doing your due diligence to begin with, right? So we've launched Bare Metal Cloud just over a year ago, and ultimately As you guys will see through the next couple of slides, we've been putting really a lot of work developing that platform, expanding, right, and heavy integrating with the most popular automation tools that are on the market. This is why you can just basically run an Ansible script and stand up the infrastructure and be ready to go in minutes. And we're actually going to have a short demo for you a little bit later in a few minutes to show you how that really works in real life. And ultimately, this is all what Bare Metal Cloud is about, right? Access to cloud-like dedicated and high-performance resources, full automation, integration with the modern tools, right? Modern DevOps tools, pay as you go. We obviously offer also commitment options, right? But that's not the target of this concept here, right? You want to be able to access infrastructure without prior commitments, right, to it. And when we talk any cloud, as Elton was showing, right, you could target us. That's why we hope that with this conversation we can convince you to do that. But ultimately, the concept of any cloud means just that, right? Automation and ability to be anywhere and everywhere as you need to be, and hopefully you don't, right? Ultimately, this all of this is in preparation to be ready when the storm hits, right? So we guys, we are on top of that, right? Aside from all those features, technical features, so we have very experienced engineering and support staff available 24/7, 365, global availability, fleet of really high performance compute and storage resources at your fingertips. Can be stood up in minutes, right? As we were discussing, they can be used whether for DR services and purposes, but also for your production workloads to begin with, right? So there's really no ceiling here. And ultimately, we're supporting a very wide range of OSs, virtualization, right? We've recently deployed SUSE Rancher, allowing you to basically run upstream and downstream clusters with a single click of a button, right? And then we are very conscious about our clients' needs and are continuously really developing new features, adding more locations. As you guys can see on this slide, right now we have plenty of locations covering the US. From our Bare Metal Cloud is instantly available in Chicago, Ashburn, Phoenix, and as well as Seattle, actually. And the same goes for Amsterdam, covering Central and Western Europe, as well as Singapore, covering APAC. And we have a lot more locations in the works for 2022 and forward. So as you guys can see, this is really what the Bare Metal Cloud is about, and we're expecting to keep on moving forward, adding more features and listen to our customers and trying to do everything we possibly can to fit their requirements. Part of that is also the fact that we're usually are one of the first ones to launch the latest cutting edge technologies. Things like we just recently launched the third generation Intel Xeon scalable systems, right? You might know them as Ice Lake systems. They are right now instantly available on our platform, right? If you go there, you can spin them up any minute. Same goes for single CPU systems, right? If you need to scale horizontally, use some lower compute, but you need a lot of them. We launched Intel Xeon E2300 series. You might know them as Rocket Lakes. Both systems very popular with our clients. Latest and greatest technology at your fingertips, ready and available right now. Hourly, with longer commitments, what have you, right? We're very open to all these things. And guys, we have another poll actually, because we're the time is running short, so we have one last poll, which ultimately just basically asking you if you wanted to talk directly to either Veeam team, Backblaze, phoenixNAP, all of us together. Please just check the box here, and we'll be sure to hit you up right after the webinar. So our folks will get in touch with you. So all you have to do is check a box. So after that, while you guys are making those selections, we're gonna have a short demo to show you really how simple, quick, and easy it looks like, right? To go from Backblaze to directly to phoenixNAP bare metal cloud. And we have a short video that was pre-recorded because honestly, we're really short on time here. So we're about to show you the video, and I know Elton wanted to make a short introduction on that end.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. So we, our VP of Sales and one of the founding members of Backblaze, Neely Patel, took the time to record a video for us that basically is a demo of how you can get up and running with instant recovery using Veeam, Backblaze, and phoenixNAP.
Let me show you a demo using one of our cloud providers, phoenixNAP. phoenixNAP offers pay-as-you-go bare metal hardware on demand. After installing Ansible, you specify your phoenixNAP credentials in a config file. Next, you create a playbook that describes your resources. In this simple example, we are standing up 2 hosts, a Windows server for Veeam and a single ESXi server. You can also specify hardware types, SSH keys, network configuration, and other facts about your infrastructure here. Now, in a disaster, you simply execute your playbook, which is a single command. Your hosts are created on demand, and from the output, you retrieve the system credentials of the various hosts. In this example, we're going to install Veeam and fetch the immutable backups that I showed earlier. Veeam runs on Windows, so we first install Veeam. Then we configure the new ESXi hosts. And finally, create the backup repositories. Then we configure Backblaze B2's credentials into Veeam. Veeam will notice the previous backups and index them for recovery. From here, it's very easy to recover. Veeam fetches the backups stored in Backblaze B2 very quickly using the fast bandwidth that exists between Backblaze and phoenixNAP. And that's it. See, the first VM is already available. While I sped up large parts of this demo, the whole thing, from installing Ansible all the way to the first VM running, took just over an hour. And that included all the various errors and mishaps that we had along the way. Of course, your time will vary depending on the sophistication of your environment. But that said, it'll probably be a lot faster than the time it takes to comprehensively scrub your infrastructure after an attack to ensure that any remnants of the ransomware or viruses are completely removed. Also, if you have more stringent RTO goals, phoenixNAP has other recovery options that could cost more but could help you hit the faster RTOs.
Right, as you guys could see, this was fairly painless and quick. And it can be realized, right, depending exactly, right, on the scale of your environment and all the various factors. Still, bottom line being, it's fairly quick, it's fairly agile, scalable, and on demand, really, right? So it doesn't require you to have any large contracts, spend any money up front, and what have you. Keeps you agile from financial perspective. So guys, we're really short on time. We have some questions that came our way. We're not gonna be unfortunately able to answer all of them. However, we'll hit up each one of you with the questions that you guys had. We will come back with answers to you if we can't address all of them right here, because there are quite a few. On top of that, I wanted to say that we will share the recording with all participants of this webinar. And even if you did not get a chance or didn't decide at that point in time to select in the poll that you want to be contacted by any one of us, at the end of this, you'll see an email address. You can always send us an email, and we'll make sure to get back to you ASAP. So fear not, you can always find us, and we'll answer any questions that you may possibly have. So guys, looking at the questions that came our way, is let me start from the top. Can you talk a bit more about the differences between object lock and insider protection? And I don't know, Michael, you want to take that one?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's two different real main focuses or two different drives here. They do different functionality. So the immutability and the object lock, that's going to really ensure that you always have the most recent copy of your clean data. It's safe, secure, and it's always going to be recoverable at any time. Using object lock, really what it does is prevent modifications or any type of deletions during that particular during that type of retention period. So basically, think of, hey, once it's up there and it's in this immutable object storage bucket, it cannot be overwritten. You can't just go out and say, hey, I want to throw a new thing to it and it's going to just eat it. No, that's not how it works. It's going to be set in there, kind of like if you're used to write once, read many, kind of like Worm. That's going to have that locks. Now, on the other side, which is insider protection. So Backblaze is going to fit more into the immutability and the object storage. And then insider protection, that really kind of falls more on the phoenixNAP side, where they're actually protecting your backups against like accidental or malicious deletion, corruption, or modification. So let's just say your on-prem Veeam backup and replication server, for whatever reason, got infected, and they were actually able to get admin level credentials and go in there and make them up. Basically, what's going to happen is if phoenixNAP and the partner set up insider protection, what it's going to look like is to the malicious actor or insider or the person that's doing the malicious act, it's going to look like they were successful, but actually they weren't, because all that data just resides back in the phoenixNAP side, allowing for an easy, fast, and retrievable of that deleted data that was coming from the on-prem infrastructure.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. I got another one for Elton. So how much do you at Backblaze charge for a TB of storage? And are there any additional fees to use the instant recovery?
Yeah, thanks, Marty. So Backblaze pricing is half a penny a gig, which equates to $5 per terabyte. With that pricing, there is no delete penalties. So if you choose to delete your data after an hour, you only pay for the time you use. In addition, because you're already backing up that data to Backblaze B2, there is no additional cost to use the object lock feature, which gives you the immutability that you need when it comes to ransomware protection. But in addition to also using the instant recovery solution, we have partnered with phoenixNAP on this, and we offer free egress between Backblaze B2 and phoenixNAP. So there's no egress fees as well to restore your data in phoenixNAP's bare metal cloud. So no additional fees from the Backblaze side. I'll pass it over to Michael to talk about the Veeam and Martin to talk about the phoenixNAP side.
Perfect. Yeah. So from that side, Veeam is definitely going to absolutely be able to protect it and make sure that data set is protected. And that also comes along with the different licensing that kind of comes along with it. So very agile, very easy to be moved around.
Yep. And on our end, as Elton already mentioned, right? No egress fees, which is and guys, I can direct you also. Backblaze has a very nifty cost calculator, basically showing what these things could look like, right? If you're using public cloud and you have to move a ton of data out, right? These fees vary greatly, but they could run you massive amounts of dollars, right? Depending obviously on the volumes And with that said, right, not only are you saving costs on that, but also on our end as phoenixNAP, basically almost everything is, well, not almost everything is on demand, right? So that's ultimately up to you as an end user, how you want to consume it, whether you want everything on demand, partially committed infrastructure, and what have you. So at the end of the day, between the cost savings from Veeam, Backblaze, and phoenixNAP, I think the entire big picture, financial picture, will be very hard to say no to, versus trying to do it on your own.
Yeah, and then to kind of to key in and hone into that point, Martin, you're only paying when you need to recover, right? So
Right.
this is a solution that's available to you. You don't have to worry about paying for anything. But if a disaster were to happen, that's when you start doing you start spinning up your phoenixNAP bare metal cloud service. That's when you start paying for the compute resources. All the data you're pulling in from Backblaze, there's no egress fees, there's no additional charges there. So it's really, insurance without paying for insurance.
Yep, and at $5 per TB, that's a steal. Yeah. So guys, maybe we have time for one more question. I see here, let me see really quick, something that will fit in here. Are all of the backups that are stored in a hardened repository supported for immutability?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, hypothetically, as long as you're using a Linux hardened repository, right? And we're also setting an immutable flag, I think that is the key. So as long as we're using both of those, yes, hypothetically, as long as it's a hardened repository, and we're making sure to use that immutable flag, which is the key part to make it the immutable portion. So yes.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you, Michael. So guys, we're kind of running out of time here. Like I said, there's still a bunch of other questions that we're going to reach out to you directly with some answers. Thank you everyone for joining us. Again, if you need to reach us out, reach us, and you didn't get a chance to get your answers just yet, please hit us up here. You can either call us or send an email, reach out on social media. We're everywhere, and we're very easy to find, and we'll make sure to get you in touch with the right people and provide you with answers you're searching for. Thank you so much, Michael and Elton, for your time. Thank you so much, everyone that has actually spent the time with us here to listen to the story. Yeah, I hope that we will see you guys at future webinars, and I hope that this has been helpful and help you understand, what the options look like, what you as a business can do to protect yourself better. And I know some of the answers to the poll were that you're doing all of the things to protect, but on the flip side, if there are things to improve, we'll be glad to be part of that improvement and solution.